What's up, crew? Welcome to Filming in Progress, the show that takes you backstage into the world of local businesses and the people who make them shine. Welcome to the show, Reid Kimmett. Reid is the owner and operations manager of Two Pharmacy, a family-run business that has been the pillar of the Cochrane community for 35 years, blending business with a deep commitment to social impact. Reid, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. It's nice to meet you.
Where are we?
We're on my parents' acreage, where I grew up. We moved here when I was in grade 6, and then we're in the barn that was built where my brother had his wedding and I had my wedding, and a number of other family and friends have got married here, so definitely a meaningful spot.
Right on. 35 years, Two Pharmacy, or previous names, has been around. What do you think has led to the success and longevity of the brand?
I think the people would be the biggest thing. Like there's been a number of people that worked close to the 35 years, 32, 33 years with my parents before retiring. And now we have a number of people that are 15 to 25 years. And it's people that have had a shared meaning, shared purpose, shared values with us and have wanted to make that a part of their life and a central part of their life. So yeah, I think it's the people that stand behind the counter that people come and know and trust.
The people probably in front and behind the counter. When you think about like talent attraction and the people that have worked for you and worked with you and attend, come to support you and that sort of thing, what are the commonalities and why, I suppose ultimately, why is community important?
Yeah, there's definitely a diversity of people that have worked for us over the years. Right now, I think we have 53 staff currently, so there's a wealth of experience, knowledge, everything under the sun that these people are bringing. And so I feel like the entire business is predicated on attracting these talented, educated people and then getting out of their way and letting them like find their own way. And my job as a leader, I feel, is to sort of be a servant to them, help them find their own way, help them find their voice, find their role in the community.
Have you always been a leader? Did that come naturally to you, or has it been kind of learned along the way?
I think it would depend who you ask about that. My older brother would probably say no, that I would pester him, that kind of thing, when I was a little kid. I think, like looking back at growing up playing sports, playing hockey, that kind of thing, I was always comfortable having a voice and sharing my voice and being in a leadership role. But I'd also say I'm not the most like outgoing, loud person either. I tend to do a lot of listening, watching, and kind of, I feel like a few meaningful words is a lot more important than a lot of words.
I couldn't agree more. Do you think that when, do you think there's a better way to go about it? Like you mentioned, not a loud person, you're a bit more quiet. I tend to be the same. Is that a better characteristic for a leader, or are they equal, or what do you think?
I think through my time working at Two Pharmacy, I've realized I don't think there's like one universal form of leadership that is going to work for every single person. So I feel like you need to be a little more adaptable, a little more observant of what works with certain people. Like certain people require more of a hands-on approach and they need more of that connection, they need more validation. Other people need you to let go of the leash and let them run, that kind of thing. So I feel like when I came in and started working here, I didn't have a formal management experience actually managing a staff. And I thought, like, I have my way and my way will work for everyone. And he quickly realized that's not really true. So yeah, I think that the biggest thing I try and do is just empower people. And that takes different forms with different people based off of their needs.
In what ways do you empower people, and how does that translate into, them doing the best job and wanting to show up to work every day?
I think valuing them and just showing that in different ways. So if that's listening to their ideas and incorporating their ideas into the future strategic plan or what we're doing at the pharmacy, that would be one way. If it's caring about their personal lives and realizing that these are human beings, they're not just employees that come and work at the store. They come with other things going on in their lives and situations with their families, and knowing that they're supported that way too. I feel like that kind of helps them feel sort of safe and comfortable and and ready to work when they're at work, but also comfortable being a human being when they're there too.
Awesome. Your business is based in Cochrane, which, as we were talking off camera, was a very small community and has grown very, very quickly. How has that growth in the community affected your business?
I think it's presented opportunity and challenges for us. The business is certainly vastly different, both in size, scope, than it was in 1989. But yeah, the opportunity it's presented is you have all these newcomers to Cochrane. You have new needs. Like we started off as this kind of traditional small town drugstore. I was talking to you earlier about like the old town pharmacy where it's named after the road it's on, or the pharmacist's last name, that kind of thing. Originally we were that, and the town grew beyond that, and we needed to grow beyond that too and have more of a brand, something to stand behind that tells our story more so than a last name or a road.
Awesome. I know that, along those 35 years, the time since inception, there's a million different changes that have happened, not only in Cochrane, but also from a technology and perspective and that sort of thing. And chatting with you before, like learning about innovation and that sort of thing, what kind of changes have had to be made over the years to ensure that, the Two Pharmacy stays relevant and is still thriving today?
I think just like always having our ear to the ground kind of thing, whether that's within the town directly or the industry that we're functioning in. Like I think back to my dad when he first started in his career as a pharmacist, there wasn't even computers you were using for anything. Like it was all handwritten logs, and now everything is done on computers. If we have a big outage, it's a problem. Like things don't really work there. So. I feel like the integration of technology, but having that support the human function of pharmacy has been at the forefront for us. Like some of the innovation we've done, we've had a couple pharmacy dispensing robots come into the pharmacy. Like I think back to Jerry Seinfeld has a clip where he's joking about what a pharmacy used to be, where it's this person standing at an elevated counter and they're very fancy and they're doing this hard work of taking pills from a big bottle and putting it in a small bottle. And the reality is that pharmacy is much more complex than that, but we've automated that task by bringing in these robots that take pills from a big bottle and put it in a small bottle. So the pharmacist doesn't have to do that anymore. And now they can spend that time connecting with a person, understanding their history, their story, their personal life, what's going on, to really provide the comprehensive care that they need.
Awesome. Do you think there's any sort of resistance to that sort of technology from either consumers or staff or anything like that? And how does that affect you?
Yeah, I think some of the first things we put in, like the first robot we put in, I feel like that was a learning experience for me personally as a leader, where I saw the value of this machine and what it could mean to our staff and to our customers. But I maybe didn't communicate that the best to them. Like this was a decision that I made, not that we made. And the decision I made was impacting a lot of people. So I think the staff at first started to get worried of like, okay, we're putting this in, it's gonna take a big portion of my job. It may take my job. And that was not the intent at all. And that never came to fruition either. The goal was for that to take these kind of unnecessary, monotonous tasks away from people so that they can do more high-value tasks and things that provide more meaning and purpose to them as well.
Yeah, I mean that's a common fear, right? Among with technology in general, with that like AI specifically, is the big one right now. Oh, it's going to take people's jobs and that sort of thing. What's your stance on that?
I wish I could have a crystal ball as to where things are going to go with AI, but I don't necessarily know. But I feel like every time we've implemented any form of technology, there's been a reason for doing it, but then there's also these unintended consequences that come with it. So I think it's more than anything, it's just going to be managing those unintended consequences, paying attention to what's happening, and kind of never losing sight of what the purpose of it was. If the purpose was to drive greater customer care and greater connection, well, let's not forget that when all of a sudden it's leading to the idea of like, I don't know, not having as many people there. Well, I kind of talked about it right off the start. People are why people come to us. So, I think you got to kind of stick to your values, stick to your roots.
Do you think that some of your customers, they've been attending is the wrong word, been a customer for so long because of that human element? Would you say that's a contributing factor?
Yeah, it's tough to quantify what drives loyalty, but I'd say, like, if I think, I don't know, the way my brain works, I often kind of have this train of thought of like, what's the worst case scenario and what would happen then? And the worst case scenario I could think of for a long time was we had this huge doctor's clinic in the building next to us, and I thought, we do very well because we have this very large doctor's clinic that has a lot of patients, and those patients go there, and then it's very convenient for them to come over to us. And so my worst case scenario was, what if that clinic closed? And in 2021, that clinic closed, and I very quickly realized there was something a lot more to it. There was something a lot more to the relationships we had with customers than that we were convenient and located next to a large doctor's office. So that happened, and it wasn't even like a blip on the radar of what our numbers did. We didn't slow down, we didn't decline, we continued to grow through that. And that kind of made me open my eyes to the depth and like the huge amount of loyalty that people had to us. And yeah, I would go back to that being the people. They come in, they see a familiar face. Like we've long talked about the theme song from Cheers, You Want to Go Where Everyone Knows Your Name. And Cochrane's very big now. Like when we were one of a couple pharmacies in a town of 2,000 people, amongst your staff, you probably could know everyone's name that comes in. Now with the amount of people, that's not something that we can say we can do right now, but we can strive towards that, and we can strive to make a connection with the next person that comes through the door, and then have that connection resonate the next time they come in and remember who they are.
How do you train that? How do you, the people, that's such a, you mentioned this earlier, but it's people to people. It's caring about that person. It's ensuring that they leave with a smile on their face, regardless of how they came in, that sort of thing. Does that just come naturally to the people that you hire as a value, as a core value, or is it something that has to be taught?
I think the truth would lie probably somewhere a little bit in between those. I think we recruit and retain a lot of people that have similar values to us. So the business, like we started it as a social enterprise in 2017. We converted the name from Grand Avenue Pharmacy to Two Pharmacy. And what that means for us, our purpose, our mission is health for you, health for another. So we want to support the person's health across from us, and then we want to create this ripple effect of good through donating 1% of every transaction to benefit another person's health. So I feel like that purpose draws in a lot of people who have similar values, and then those people come with that meaning, that purpose as well. So I feel like it's kind of like embedded, or this like self-fulfilling prophecy of who comes and gives an application to us. But yeah, I feel like it's modeled by not just me, like I probably deal with customers the least in the whole business, but by everyone that's been there, including people that have been there for multiple decades, that they model that behavior of genuinely caring about the person that's across from them and wanting to help them. So I feel like a newcomer can come in and they look around and there's 23 other people working with them that day, modeling that behavior, and all of a sudden it just becomes embedded in them.
I want to go back a little bit. So the pharmacy is a family business. Did you ever work in the pharmacy as a kid?
Not really. Like I was the least of the three of us. My older sister, Lindsay, she worked the most. She eventually started as a cashier, worked her way up to being a pharmacy technician. And while she was going to university and med school, she worked as a pharmacy technician all through that. So she was definitely the most involved. My brother kind of worked as a stock boy at various pharmacies, and then did a little pharmacy assistant type work for one of my dad's businesses. And the most I was ever involved in, my very first job, I was the janitor in the evenings after the store would close. So I guess I get to live that like hypothetical like mailroom to the boardroom sort of thing.
And so if you weren't involved from the get-go, was there a time in between where you weren't involved at all and then you came back to the pharmacy, or how did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I did the janitor thing through high school and then went off to university, graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce from U of C, and moved out to Vancouver, kind of chasing both my then girlfriend, now wife, and also the Olympics were there at that time too. So kind of chasing some life adventure there. While I was there, I worked largely in finance and investing, and had like some really great work experience. But I don't know, working just in money when I came from a family largely involved in healthcare, it just didn't quite feel right to me, or I felt like there was something more. And one day my dad and I had a conversation. He's a pharmacist, but he always could wear two hats very well. He could be a pharmacist and a businessman at the same time and manage both those things very well. I feel like as the business has grown and the demands have grown, it's difficult for any one person to wear those two hats. So yeah, my dad asked if I was interested in coming back. He had a business partner that is a phenomenal pharmacist, but needed help on the business side. So I came back in 2012, and yeah, 12 years later, we've been kind of rolling, growing, and doing our thing ever since.
Did you have early entrepreneurial tendencies when you were young, growing up and that sort of thing?
Yes, but I wouldn't say I realized it at the time. I remember at our house in Glenbow and Cochrane, we had a crabapple tree, and I would try and sell our crab apples on the street corner, similar to people doing a lemonade stand, that kind of thing. I remember my brother at one point when there was the magic card craze. He got a whole bunch of magic cards, and he didn't latch onto that. It wasn't a very long-lived thing, and I never really got into it, but I realized that some of my classmates saw a lot of value in these cards, so I took my brother's cards to school and sold them to kids and kind of created this like auction market where they would bid each other up because they were aware of these cards, and then I'd take the money home, and I'd like to think I gave some to my brother. I don't really remember explicitly doing that, but there was like these little things that I think kind of showed that I had some sort of mindset or some sort of tendency, and I think it's kind of, as I reflect, it's kind of run in our family's roots too. Like my dad and both his siblings are all pharmacists. They've all done a lot of entrepreneurial things in their careers, going back multiple generations. The pictures behind me are from a family farm. My grandfather and his siblings, and then going back another generation past them, had a lot of entrepreneurial endeavors kind of east of Calgary. So I've realized that whether I intended to be an entrepreneur or wanted or was born to be, like, there was just something there, I think.
Growing up with a father who had those tendencies as well, I'm sure you kind of picked up some of that along the way. Would you say your siblings were the same, or do you think it's kind of like maybe you're predetermined in some way, shape, or form to have those tendencies?
I think we're all similar, but we're all different. Like, we all had unique strengths and skill sets, and so I think they chose different paths than me. Like, my brother works a corporate job in Calgary that he's been at for a long time, and like, he really loves that environment. He loves the stability of that environment, and he's had a phenomenal career. My sister, I guess we didn't get to see where her path was going to take her. She passed away in a car accident in 2008, kind of on the road to my parents' house. You guys would have driven past it on the way here today. But yeah, at the time she was going to school to be a physician, so I don't think she was necessarily going to like express herself entrepreneurially in the same way that I do. But she wanted to care for people, she wanted to help people, and she wanted that to be her life's purpose and mission.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
How did that affect? Was this pre you taking over the pharmacy?
Yeah. So that was 4 years prior when I was doing my undergrad degree. And yeah, I was in third year of university, and kind of at that time going to business school, I kind of thought, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to work for a large corporation and I'm going to make a lot of money, and that will be my happy, fulfilled life. And kind of in a moment, life shifts. I was just listening to a podcast with my kids the other day, and it was talking about everyone has these moments in life of like before and then after. And for me, in my life, that's by far the biggest one of before my sister passed away and then after Lindsay passed away. So I kind of realized at that time that perhaps I needed to have more of a meaningful goal or more of a purpose in life. And I think back to Lindsay's goals or my either of my parents both being in healthcare, and ultimately they wanted to dedicate their lives to helping people. And I kind of realized maybe that's what I want my life to be about as well, but I want to do it in my way with my skill set. So I like to think that I have a mind for business and a skill set that leads to success there, but I want to apply that to helping people to that same purpose as my family.
What kind of, besides the mindset shift, what kind of tangible kind of results came out of that change? What were the things that you changed every day to adhere to this newfound kind of purpose, if you will?
I think one immediate one is I think I became a better student. I think I grew up in a moment too that I was at that time I was 20 years old. I was very much enjoying being a university student, living independently, that kind of thing. Maybe not always the best student. My sister, conversely, was the opposite. She was a phenomenal student. She was the valedictorian at high school. So me and my brother both kind of had to follow in her academic footsteps or shadows in some ways. So I think kind of wanting to make my sister proud, I sort of made a conscious effort to be more focused on school, to be more focused in learning, and be more focused on being as good as I could be, that kind of thing. And I think it also just made me more of a selfless person. I kind of shifted my goals to reflect that they didn't need to be about me. They needed to be about impact and helping people and about building community, that kind of thing. So a few of the things that happened right away, a few fundraisers started for my sister. We had some family friends reach out to us and start a golf tournament, so being involved in that, and that's still going on now, 16 years later. Two of Lindsay's med school classmates started a hockey tournament called the Kimmett Cup in her memory, and I immediately jumped on board with that and have been one of the co-organizers of that for the last 16 years. So there was just, I don't know, this feeling that my sister's life ended, but her legacy didn't, her impact didn't, but now is in my hands. I needed to do what I could to help build her legacy and help carry on the work that she wanted to do in her life.
Awesome. And that's so apparent by all of the initiatives that you take on at the pharmacy. Can you identify any challenges that you've faced since taking over and kind of how you overcame them?
Yeah, I think the first one that would stand out for me when I think to first coming back, I was 25 years old. I had a decent education and a little bit of work experience, and I was coming to an environment with a lot of people who knew me when I was 2 years old. And all of a sudden, I was the boss. So that presented challenges, and I'd say I had a little worry about what that was going to be like coming in, and I just sort of realized my preferred model of leadership is servant leadership, so I didn't want to come in and be a boss and command respect from people, that kind of thing. I just wanted to come and be a part of the environment, help where I could, and kind of find my way organically, and that ended up serving me quite well.
Was there an element of like imposter syndrome or something like that? Was it an age thing? Maybe the fact that you'd been away for so long and coming back to something familiar where, maybe people hadn't left,
Yeah, definitely a lot of imposter syndrome, both with that, and then I could apply it in different ways that, like being a pharmacy owner and managing a pharmacy and not being a pharmacist is a little different. So there's kind of this question of well, do I really belong here? Do I really have a place here? Or is this more the role of a pharmacist? So I need to find my way there. I've had things where, like going back to doing an MBA in entrepreneurship and innovation and thinking, am I an entrepreneur because I didn't start this business? This was my family's business. They started a long time ago. So at my core, am I an entrepreneur? And I've had to kind of reckon with that or realize well, I don't think there's a yes or no to who is an entrepreneur and who's not. I think it's little actions you take and things you pursue. But definitely a lot of that. To go back to what my mom said of my mind's always running, I'm always thinking. So those doubts definitely roll through there as well.
I'm reminded of something that you said earlier, which was that your dad was both a great entrepreneur and a great pharmacist. Do you think not having the pharmacy side of things actually might have helped you on the entrepreneurial side of things?
Yeah, definitely, I would say. I think coming from this sort of outsider-insider perspective has been of good value both to me and to the business. That there's certain things that pharmacists are trained to look at in certain ways, and as a business student, I'm trained to look at them in a different way, and so it can lead to a lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue, a lot of creative problem solving amongst our team. And then, I also kind of came from this other weird perspective that I grew up in pharmacy, that from when I was 2 years old, my dad would bring me to work. I'd sit in his office while he was working and do drawings that he'd hang on his wall, or he'd get us to price Halloween candy, or all sorts of little things. Like, I was always in that environment, but not being a pharmacist, it was never really my environment. But I got to bring this like unique way of looking at things, and I mean, there's times where I wish I was a pharmacist still. Like, we were just recently at a conference, and basically everyone there was a pharmacist. I was there as a pharmacy owner, and you kind of have these moments of like, I don't know, did I end up here because my dad was a pharmacist, or was there some sort of greater calling or greater meaning, or I was meant to be here and I was meant to bring my unique skill set and personality to it?
And where do you land when you have those thoughts?
I think that I'm very happy to be where I'm at, and that comes with amazing days and amazing moments. That comes with challenges. That comes with doubts, and I like it all. I like every bit of it, and when I go to sleep at night, I'm not a person that loses sleep. I feel very proud of what I'm able to do, and very privileged to be able to do what we do. So, all those things, just I'm where I'm meant to be. Like, I think back to my sister when she was in med school, and I feel like there's times where you can like externally look at a person and be like, they're right where they're meant to be. Like, they're doing their thing. They found their calling. Like, they're in it right now. And I remember looking at my sister when she was in med school and thinking that. And I remember going through university myself and some of my first jobs, and I didn't feel like that when I would look at myself. And I can very confidently say when I look at myself right now, I'm right where I'm meant to be.
Awesome. Is there any advice that you wish you would have had or could give yourself maybe from when you first took over the pharmacy that would have been valuable to know then that you now know now?
I think the biggest thing would be to slow down a little bit. Like, coming back and being 25, you want the world and you want it right now kind of thing. And I realized that things happen in their own time, at their own pace, and just being more patient with myself as well.
Do you plan on keeping the business in the family?
I don't know necessarily. I'd say yes, but I think definition of family has evolved over time too. That someone that started with us fairly recently, she kind of coined the term within the pharmacy of family, that like, we have our own family there, and I could foresee a day where that family is part of the ownership of the store for sure.
Love it. Do you have a plan for how that might come about, or is this like early stage?
No fixed plan, but like, my dad is about 15 years older than his business partner Ian, and I'm about 15 years younger than Ian, and sort of organically it kind of worked out that my dad passed on to me, and me and Ian did our thing, and eventually the time will come, realistically based off of our age gap, where Ian's reached that point in his career, and what does that look like? And I think expanding that family, perhaps off a new definition, is what that ownership may look like.
Tell me about this name change, because obviously there was this purpose existed pre, but then you know in 2017, I believe you mentioned you changed the name and changed the business structure. What was the catalyst for that? Was there a before and after of that moment as well?
A little bit, but that one it took more time. So I came back and started working in 2012. Over that first year I was there, I kind of had this idea formulate of putting giving and kind of the core belief of how we operate our business in our actual name. And then it's kind of on everything that we do. And so I pitched my dad and his business partner, Ian, at that time, on this idea of 2 Pharmacy, I called it. Or it might have even been 2 Health back then. And they thought it was neat. And then it kind of got parked. And I'd only been there for a year. I was 25 years old. I had grandiose visions and dreams. Maybe I needed to kind of like find my footing a little first. So it always just kind of sat in the back of my mind. And then a few years later, we were having a strategic planning meeting, and to kind of like, I don't know, grease the wheels of conversation, I figured out a few TED Talks I wanted to show them, and one of them was Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And I wouldn't say that was my goal that day of like, I'm gonna show them this video and then we're gonna be called 2 Pharmacy and we're gonna make this shift. I just wanted to show them that video and then have a conversation. And so we did, and very organically and very quickly, the conversation sort of came back to that idea I had pitched 4 years prior. And by the time we left that room that day, we decided that we wanted to make the shift to 2 Pharmacy and make the shift to putting giving at the core of our business.
This start with why concept, I think probably a lot of the people that listen to this show will be familiar with it. Why, maybe talk me through the shift that happened. You know, you said that there was a time where you brought it up in the first place. There was a period of time between that before the decision was made to proceed with it, and this pivot was potentially, you know, due to this Simon Sinek chat. What do you think changed in your father's and his business partner's mind to make that shift happen?
A lot of those beliefs and those values had always been part of the business. Like, I remember being a kid and going to any event, any tournament, whatever it was, and my parents' business was always a sponsor of it. My dad kind of had a policy of saying yes, that if he could be of support in some way, he'd just say yes. It didn't really matter the potential positive business ramifications to him. He just wanted to be a part of the community and support the community. So that stuff was always there. And I think over time they just realized that whether our name's 2 Pharmacy or it's something different, that's what we're about. But our name doesn't necessarily speak to that. So it doesn't tell that story to people. They need to dive deeper to find that story or to learn that story from us. So I think they sort of just realized that it's who we are regardless, but we might as well have a name that reflects that story.
Do you think businesses that have that purpose, that have kind of subscribed to the value of something bigger than the transaction or whatever, last longer or have a bigger impact or maybe create more community? What is the bird's eye of starting with why?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been fruitful. I'd make an argument on a financial level for the business, but also on sort of like a meaning level, a purpose level for all of us as well. I think it's become in vogue the last number of years, this like triple bottom line of being for people, profit, and the planet, that kind of thing. And I feel like the feedback we're getting from customers, the feedback we're getting from our staff, what we feel in ourselves as we go home for the day, I feel like it all speaks positively to it doing something. Some of it's difficult to quantify though, so it's tough to say. Like, I don't know, I sort of think of it as this like chicken and the egg thing of like, do we give because we're successful, or are we successful because we give? And I can't say it's necessarily one or the other, but I view it as being this like symbiotic thing that they both are feeding and fueling each other continuously. And it's definitely been a positive for us. And I know if you would ask me, I think if you would ask Ian or my dad, would they go back in time? Would they do the same thing? Unequivocally, the answer would be yes, that 2 Pharmacy is who we are and what we're about. And we have like a number of pieces of clothing, sweaters, hats, whatever, and it means something to us to put that logo on and to represent that in the community.
Do you think that the business landscape in general, maybe in Cochrane or Calgary or surrounding area, is moving in that direction of having a bigger purpose? Absolutely, yeah.
I think that there's been a number of positive cases, like if you think of the B Corp certification coming out of the States, of companies that have proven that model out, that it can be very successful, that it can resonate with customers, it can resonate with your team and lead to lower turnover, higher retention, that kind of thing. That it's kind of proven that it works, so people are on board with that now. They don't necessarily need to be convinced or this like long sell to do that. I would worry about sometimes, like you think of the term greenwashing, where a company says they're all for the environment and they have all these initiatives, but it's more talk than action, of sort of like purpose washing, that people are kind of doing it because it's in vogue or it's perceived well in the community to show that you have a purpose. But do you actually have a purpose, and how deep is that within your organization? And I can't necessarily think of great positive or negative examples in the business community, but I feel like it comes down to the values of the business, the values of the founders, owners, employees, customers, and making sure those are all embedded within the organization.
Some of those things, maybe not core values, but even core values, some of those things change over time. You start out with one kind of avenue, and then 5 years later you've shifted a little bit, or whatever the case may be. What are the ways that you, or maybe practices that you've put in place to ensure that you're always kind of comparing your decisions back to your purpose?
I think the biggest thing would just be listening, and like not just listening to what our customers or our staff are saying, but creating opportunities to listen. So it could be a survey, it could be like we've talked recently about doing like an Ask Me Anything with our team, so that they can give their feedback in like an open environment. And so I think doing some of those sorts of things would help kind of drive that home. But yeah, I don't necessarily know the best way other than to make it a conscious effort to constantly be listening, learning, reviewing, kind of like in this cycle of what happened in 1989 at my dad's business, I wouldn't be working today. So obviously we've done a number of those things to get to where we are, but that doesn't mean we get to stop now and rest on the laurels that we did that for 35 years and now we're good to go.
Realistically, having conviction, right? It's knowing that this is the right thing to do, and so why stop?
Yeah, and like I think back to some of the gifting we've done since we became Two Pharmacy. Originally, we started out and we worked with We Charity to fund a number of projects. So they had some programs in local schools, so we were funding those programs being placed in those schools. We did like some international water wells in schools. They had a clinic in Kenya that we were funding a few things at. And then COVID happened and We Charity kind of crumbled under some political pressure and things. So we kind of realized, you know what, we need to shift our gifting, and we realized, why not gift right here, right in our community, where the people that are supporting us would benefit from this gifting. So we shifted it, and we created a program we call Community Roots, and it was all about supporting and growing the roots of our community, and in doing so, making the community kind of richer, more diverse, and stronger. So we shifted that each month now we pick a different local cause or charity, and we support them, and we try and do that in a number of ways. Yes, we give them money. We give them 1% of the sales we do that month. But we've also tried to kind of benefit them in other ways. So we have a large following, both online and in the actual business. So we want to use that following to share their story, to use our voice to trumpet their story. So we started doing a lot more of that kind of thing as well. And yeah, that's how it's grown.
How do you choose what charities to give to? I'm sure, localizing it makes it a bit of a smaller market, but still there's so many incredible causes, right? And similarly with telling their story, I love the initiative, not unsimilar to what we're doing. And I think that's incredible. But again, how do you choose? Like, where do you, I'm sure you have a long list of options, right?
Yeah. Fortunately, at the current time, or for the last number of years, the kind of pace of people that apply to us has kind of matched our monthly cycle. Occasionally we kind of get overrun and we'll decide to split months or that kind of thing. But I'd say we have a little bit of criteria. The first being that we want a partner. Like we want someone that wants to know our story and share our story, just like we want to know their story and share their story. So we want a relationship with these organizations. We don't want to send some emails back and forth and then give them a check at the end of the month. We want something more meaningful than that. So kind of talking to them, getting to know them, and seeing if there's the opportunity for there to be more of a relationship would be one thing. Obviously, coming from healthcare and our slogan being health for you, health for another, we really like things if there's some component of health, and that can be applied broadly. It could be physical health, it could be mental health, it could be community health. So we like things that fall into that. And then just looking at sort of the most vulnerable are the people that are in the most need in our community. We certainly look at seniors and things that impact kids, because those are things that are very prescient in all of our lives.
The word community has come up several times in the conversation. I want to explore. I think you are such a community builder. What I've learned so far in this conversation and otherwise. What does community actually mean?
I think it's who you are. It's at your core, your soul kind of thing. Like you think back to the phrase, which I remember actually saying it in a wedding speech at my wedding here a few years ago, that it takes a village to raise a child. And then to everyone that was in the room that day, I said, "And you are our village, so thank you." And I think that's what community is. That's your village. That's who made you who you are, and instilled everything into you. So yeah, I don't know if I didn't provide an exact definition, but I don't know, like I can feel community. It means that much to me, and to have grown up in this community, and what this community has meant to me as a child growing up, and especially what it meant to my family in the wake of my sister passing away, and how 16 years later they're still coming out to events and still remembering my sister, still sharing her story. This community is everything.
Do you see that community growing past, Cochrane, Calgary, et cetera? Like, do you have plans for expansion in other areas or anything along those lines?
Yeah, we've definitely explored a number of different opportunities over the years. We've never had things add up just right, but I kind of come back to our slogan and our vision for the business of health for you, health for another. So that's what we want to do. If I project out what the next 10, 25, 35 years look like, whatever's in service of that mission. So if that means going to new communities and applying a similar business model there so that more people's health benefit, that's what we want to do. If it's applying the business model in different ways, so we do it in pharmacy, but could it be applied to optometrists, dentists, family doctors to do something similar? We'd consider that. Is it going online to, which we definitely do a bit of, but to kind of broaden our scope well beyond the borders of Cochrane, Alberta, Canada, that kind of thing. I'd sort of say all those things are on the table as long as it serves that vision.
Have any other practitioners or service providers or pharmacies or anything similar come to you to consult potentially on kind of the difference that you've made with your decisions and how potentially they could follow in the same steps?
Yeah, there's definitely been some conversations. Like I wouldn't say necessarily to the point of consulting, but just sort of sharing our experience, our learnings of what the last 7 years have looked like of operating this business model. And overall, I feel like people have been really receptive. And there's some examples that I can even see where they've started to wear that hat themselves, where I gave a talk in the community a few years ago to a bunch of local businesses, and was just sharing our experience. And at the end of it, the one person came and said, they were so struck by that and they wanted to start a gifting program of their own. And so they asked me for some advice as to how to structure that. And then the first thing she said was, "And I want to start with the Kimmett Cup, your sister's hockey tournament, as our first gifting initiative." And that was definitely very meaningful. And I don't know, I feel like we've been doing this long enough now, both through things with my sister's foundation and now the pharmacy, where we've started to have these full circle moments. I feel like when you're doing philanthropic things, a lot of that runs on hope. You hope you're making a difference, you hope you're making an impact, but you never really know. And we've had instances of people that have been benefactors of things from my sister's foundation, then coming and working at the pharmacy because of what that gift meant to them. And recently we had, with the Kimmett Cup hockey tournament, we had a young boy who lost his father when he was younger, and he wanted to play hockey, and he couldn't afford to play hockey at that time. So his mom reached out, and through a program my parents started called Lindsay's Kids, they funded him and his sibling to play hockey for a number of years. Flash forward about a decade now, he is 18 years old, and he played in the Kimmett Cup tournament this year and fundraised so that he could pay it forward. He said that was very important to him because of what it meant to him and to his growth and his development. So he took on that fundraising hat himself. And there's just been like a number of these things where you realize the impact that you're able to have and the meaning of that. And then to go back to my sister, that like, I feel like she's still doing things. She's still impacting people. And if that's the case, kind of, is she ever really gone? And like I have 2 kids that were born well after my sister was gone. So they never got to meet her. They don't know her. They only know her through stories and our experiences and that kind of thing. But through Kimmett Cup, through the monumental tournament bases, through what we do at the pharmacy, they get to know her. They get to feel her spirit. And that's incredibly meaningful to me, that like Lindsay was a huge influence on my life, and that she still gets to influence my kids' lives is very important to me.
And the community around you.
Yeah.
Awesome. There's this, and you hinted at it there, but this idea that, you can plan for certain things. You can plan for benefits, right? Like you make a decision based on an unexpected outcome, but often it's the unexpected outcomes that are the more valuable ones, or the ones that hit home a little bit harder. What sort of additional benefits have you experienced through all of your work, let it be at the pharmacy or otherwise?
Like a lot of intrinsic benefits, let's say. Like I think there has been extrinsic rewards to the work that we've been able to do. But the ones that I'm most proud of and the ones that I want to share with my kids, and I don't know, if you think of your own legacy, it would be all the intrinsic things of like the people's lives that you were able to touch, that you were able to improve. And it could be through big acts, it could be through small acts. Like I always make a conscious effort when I'm going from the pharmacy, that if there's someone nearby, I hold the door open for them, and that person could have received a cancer diagnosis earlier that day. They're having the worst day of their life, and you can do a little thing, you can smile at them and show that you care. It's all that little stuff that are the benefits that hit home with me the most.
How do you go about managing your time? Entrepreneurs, we're busy, and you have a lot of things on the go. Prioritization becomes integral. How do you go about that?
Like I have a few approaches that I take. I've done quite a bit of endurance sport and Ironman triathlon type things. And I remember reading a book once, and it said you need to come up with red light, green light, and yellow light times in your life. So applying that to work, what are the times where I can take on extra things and I'm open to that time? What are the times where I absolutely can't? And for me, now that I have a growing family, there's certain family times where I'm gonna have no problem saying no to certain things because I need to spend that time with my family, with my kids, connecting, supporting their activities, volunteering for their things. So yeah, kind of creating this system of like yes, no, and maybe times definitely helps. And then a lot of Google Calendar for sure is a big part of my life, and getting notifications. I think I felt my watch buzz a couple times while I've been here, probably some notifications of things I have in there. But
you mentioned endurance sport, and that seems to be a relatively common theme among entrepreneurs and business owners and that sort of thing. What do you learn from that side of things, your fitness side of things, that you kind of translate into other aspects of your life?
I think the biggest thing is like resilience and strength, kind of proving to yourself that you can do something. Like we've had a number of staff at our store that have kind of dabbled with, like, I want to do a run, and they're like, well, I don't think I can run 5K. And I think that that's untrue for every person. I think they don't know that they can run a 5K yet. And then we've had people come through the pharmacy that then they kind of get an itch they want to scratch. And we have a person on our staff that I think she started with the 5K about a year ago, and just recently she did a 50K trail run. And those same sort of things have been applied to me, that you just teach yourself that the limits that you impose on yourself, they're probably not actually realistic, or they're things that you can overcome.
It's self-limiting beliefs, right? It's things that stop you from doing things that or people around you know that you can. What's the first step in conquering those self-limiting beliefs?
I think like acknowledgement would be the first thing, that just realizing the pressures, the stresses, the things that you're imposing on yourself would be the first step. And then I think back to when I started triathlon, the idea came, the last year my sister was alive, she did medical residency in Tanzania, and while she was there, she climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And then after she had passed, just through some conversations and things, my family and I decided that we wanted to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro all together as the sort of pilgrimage to remember Lindsay, see a part of the world that was meaningful to her. So we all went, and for a year, that was kind of like the sole focus, was training to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And then I remember coming down the mountain like hours after summiting, and like it felt phenomenal, but it also felt like empty. Like there was this other thing I needed to comprehend now about my sister passing, that I was kind of filling that void through training to climb Mount Kilimanjaro on this pilgrimage we were on. And as I was coming down, I thought, like, well, what's next for me? And I don't know, for some reason, triathlon kind of jumped out. Like I remember the Sydney Olympics in 2000, watching Simon Whitfield from Canada win the gold medal, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I thought maybe I should try a triathlon. And so the first step I took, once we got home, I went to Chapters, and I guess I'm probably dating myself, because I feel like nowadays people would go on Google or YouTube or something like that. But I went to Chapters, and I found essentially a triathlon training for dummies book, and I started to learn. I literally read about a swimming stroke, and then I went to the YMCA, and I'm like, all right, this is how the book said to do it, and away you go. And then that led to a sprint triathlon first, years later an Ironman, and a whole bunch of half Ironmans. And it's been neat. A bunch of family members have come along the ride with me. My wife now does a whole bunch of them too. And originally the thought of her swimming was enough to make her not want anything to do with triathlon. And now she's a phenomenal swimmer. I have to chase her feet when we're in the pool together. So I think it's just, to go back to your question, just acknowledging what you're imposing on yourself, but then coming up with a plan of how you're going to address something, how you're going to challenge yourself.
Awesome. You said when you were coming down Kilimanjaro that you felt this void that kind of drove you to triathlon. Have you felt that since? Has there been another nudge in a different direction?
Yeah, I think there is times like maybe less physical than those ones, but like intellectually, I feel like working in the same environment for a long time, you can start to get complacent or that kind of thing. So at one point, I remember having a conversation with my mom. I had this idea for creating this kind of like app-based prescription filling home delivery business. And I kept talking to my parents about it, And one day my mom said, like, what are you gonna do about it? And I thought, well, that's a direct challenge. And so at that time, I decided I wanted to pursue that, and I thought I need a technical co-founder to do that, and I'm not totally sure how to do that. And ultimately what I settled on was I wanted to go back to University of Calgary and do an MBA, and the kind of sole purpose was pursuing that business idea, meeting a technical co-founder, and eventually did all those things. But yeah, it kind of came from my mom sort of giving me that nudge of like, okay, it's time to take these ideas and turn them into something. And the app-based prescription filling business, it didn't turn into anything, but it was an itch I had to scratch, and I definitely learned a lot from the experience.
How important is it to have those soundboards? You mentioned that you have all these ideas, and your mom prompted you in that direction in this case. Chatting through ideas with people and having them push you in certain directions, is that something that you've always had, and what kind of impact has that had on you?
Yeah, I think I've definitely been very fortunate to have a number of people in my life, both personally and professionally, that have helped me with that. That was a big part of when I went back to U of C, that I was seeking, just not necessarily like the knowledge from class or this idea of just networking, but just this like environment of like-minded people who have like ideas and ambitions. And I feel like just being in that environment kind of fuels that in yourself. And since then, I've kind of pursued that in different ways. Like I've done some mentorship with a few startup accelerators, that kind of thing. And I feel like the purpose as a mentor is you're supposed to be helping your mentee. I feel like it's been easily a reciprocal relationship coming the other way, where like you have a young entrepreneur with these ideas and these passions, and like that fire they have, it spreads to you immediately. So yeah, I feel like I've been very fortunate that a number of people have kind of been my listening ear, and now I've kind of reached the point in my life where I need to sort of do that the other way and kind of lend an ear to someone else.
If a company is thinking about building out like a philanthropic arm, or finding purpose in building community, or any of these things that you've done successfully over the years at Two Farm, what advice would you give them? Where do they start?
I think the biggest thing would be just to start. You don't have to pursue the perfect idea or the perfect way to have a program. Like I think if you want to create like the perfect good in the world, you're probably never going to create good in the world. There's no such thing. So I think treat it as an experiment, that you see a cause out in the public that's important to you. It could be that you had a family member who had a cancer battle, and so maybe it's as simple as like, I want to organize a team to participate in the local Terry Fox run, that kind of thing. Try that and see how that feels. See how that kind of drives purpose in your organization, purpose in your own life, and then take the next step. It could be to organize your own Terry Fox run the next year. It could be to organize your own fundraiser to remember your family member, that kind of thing. I think of some of the stuff that's happened since Lindsay passed away. None of that was a plan. None of that was that we were going to create these events and we were going to fundraise for certain causes and raise a whole lot of money. It was, we wanted to remember Lindsay. We wanted to continue her legacy. So you took the first step, and eventually you take the next step, and away you go.
Where do you find your fulfillment?
In all sorts of things, I think. The biggest thing, I remember my wife, when we got married, we read, it's like the 7 love languages or something like that. And my one became obvious very quickly. It was acts of service. So the thing that feels the most fulfilling to me is being of service to someone else. If I can benefit someone else, whether that be my children, whether that be my wife, whether that be my colleagues at work, whether that be our customers, that's fulfillment to me. That's what fills my cup up.
And similarly, what does success look like to you?
I can think of like specific instances in my career that I would define as like my greatest successes, or the things I'm most proud of. And it would be some of our staff and what they've done. Like we've had a couple students that started as high school students as a cashier with us, who have now gone on to study pharmacy and become pharmacists because of the experience and the relationships that they were able to build in the pharmacy. Some of those things would be the most gratifying. Little things with our customers, like we've had a number of people pass away, and their spouse that's left behind come and bring us flowers because they know that we're a part of that grieving process with them, and that we had that relationship with those people, and that in those times of those people's lives that they think of us. Those are the greatest successes we could have, because I feel like the impact we've had on people's lives are the biggest things for us.
Yeah, I think taking that first step is so important, and it goes back to what we were talking about, overcoming resistance or building resilience in other aspects and that sort of thing too. What's next for you? What's coming down the pipeline? Are you working on anything?
Yeah, there's a few things rolling around for sure. I think, again, to go back to that vision of expanding health for you, health for another. So we've been looking at some expansion opportunities recently to different communities, and I think that's something that we certainly want to pursue. I also think with our staff, we have a lot of people that I'm very humbled by, that they care about what we do. They care about the opportunity they have to work with us. So I feel like we need to reward that in them. And for some of them, that may mean we need to expand so that they can continue to grow with us and create new opportunities for them as well. So there's a few things on the table, but ultimately, health for you, health for another is the future for me.
Where can we send people to follow along what's next for you, the pharmacy, and all of the other work that you're doing?
I have a few social media channels for sure. I'm not the most active on my own one, so it's kind of the causes and organizations that are important to me. So 2 Pharmacy on Instagram and Facebook, the Cochrane Health Foundation, which I'm a board member of, on Facebook and Instagram, and then Kimmett Cup would be kind of where I'm doing things on my sister's side.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reid. This has been absolutely incredible. It's awesome to hear really the power of purpose, honestly, throughout this entire conversation. And there's so many things that so many people can learn about, what you've done with that purpose and building community and that sort of thing. So very grateful for our time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.